accepted. This is a weekly STEP meeting. Our format is as follows. A speaker is asked to talk for 25 to 30 minutes on the STEP of that week, followed by discussion or questions until 7 p.m. You can find these weekly meetings on our YouTube page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. And don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and share. That brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting on May 24th, 2021 in Doylestown, PA, at the Monday night, 6 p.m., Stay Alive Literature and Step Group at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is George, and he will be sharing his experience on Step 10. So please help me welcome George.
Cool. Hey everyone, my name's George and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey George.
And Ron said we'll start off with reading a little bit, so I'll hop in and read a little bit out of the big book on Step 10, and then we'll get to it. Since I've come back to in-person meetings, I've become acutely aware how much I need to have cash for the Seventh Tradition basket, and not quite used to doing that yet. A little attempt at humor before we get going too far. So on 84 in our book, it talks about, this thought brings us to Step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and to continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the Spirit. So what the book's talking about is up and through 1 through 9, we've started to live this as a way of life. Now that we're on to Step 10, it should almost be coming naturally at this point. And what I'll talk about up until 6:35, 6:40, whenever God decides to quiet me down, is my progression of understanding what Step 10 is and how it's grown in my life. And I can't talk about Step 10 without talking about the other steps, at least a little bit. Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous, because Step 10 really wasn't a part of the Oxford group's solution. The 6 principles, I forget exactly how they're, I don't have the full name. I know that there's like the 6 tenets. But they didn't have Step 10. Step 10 kind of was something that came from Alcoholics Anonymous, because alcoholics, if you're an alcoholic like me, make mistakes. And there was a realization fairly quickly that there was a need for something to deal with these mistakes. And I guess I'll do the academic stuff real quick first before I get too far into it. There's a lot of confusion in Alcoholics Anonymous on Step 10 versus Step 11. And a lot of that confusion, in my experience, comes from this book, the 12 and 12. Step 10 is something I'm doing throughout the day. Step 11, when it comes to inventory, there's on page 86, I'm sure most of you probably know this, but there's an inventory that we list what happened throughout the day that actually catches some of the stuff I'm about to read in this book. If I don't catch it throughout the day. That's a nightly inventory. That's Step 11. That's not Step 10. And some folks get that confused. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. So now we're entering into, it's good news, really, for me, because this is kind of telling me when I've gone through the first 9 steps that I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. And why is that good news? Because I have this crazy amount of pressure I put on myself when I'm going through the 4th step and the 5th step, 6 and 7, 8 and 9, making these amends to have this perfect Snow White life. If I just do all this stuff right, because I'm a constant, consistent overachiever. I stayed at work until 5:30 today when I was done at 5, because I knew I could get over here pretty quickly because I work in Montgomeryville. If I just try hard enough with all these steps, I'm going to be perfect. I had this idea. I don't know if anyone else has had that experience, but I had that experience. And I can tell you from a little bit of time sober that I'm still going to make mistakes. I am absolutely growing. But the beauty of Step 10 is that it will continue to meet me where I'm at with my experience and my time sober. What's that look like for me now? I'll get to that in a little bit, because I've actually gone through it. Going through the last year, I've been exposed to more material, we were talking about before the meeting, in Alcoholics Anonymous than I've ever been exposed to before. And there are some ways that step 10 can be brought to life in a new way. So what we're going to talk about right here, continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. So I'm watching for 4 things. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately, and we make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. So there's 4 things that I'm looking for that crop up, and there's 4 actions that I take. Some folks, we can get into semantics. I call it that way because I remember the 4 and 4. That's how I remember things in my mind. And it's really, for me, it's important because this is I'm not just reading this book to get to know it academically. I want to be able to use it on a day-to-day basis. So if I memorize that there's 4 things that I'm looking for and 4 actions that I'm taking when I'm walking throughout the day and I'm at work and my boss does something I don't really appreciate, I can be like, oh, that's resentment. And what do I do with the resentment? I pray the resentment prayer. And did I do anything wrong? No, I didn't do anything wrong. It was only in my head, so I don't owe an amends necessarily. Maybe I should think about helping other people. And I obviously covered it without saying it. I've probably asked God to remove it. And if it's gotten to a point where it's really, really irking my soul, I'm probably going to contact someone. One of the things I heard recently that really resonated with me is in Alcoholics Anonymous, we get unlimited timeouts. And that's kind of what step 10 is. It's a spiritual timeout. If I'm disturbed, it's probably a good idea for me to go to the bathroom. Now that I've been a member in good standing of AA for almost 6 years, I quit smoking fairly early on, so I don't take these smoke breaks anymore, so I can take a minute to go to the bathroom at work and calm down. Or I can walk away from a family situation. I can still go to Thanksgiving and do all this stuff. I think it's really important, too, in my experience with having this step, is that I can go back to being a part of life. Because if you're an alcoholic like me, before I get sober, I'm terrified of being around people, and I have a short fuse. I don't know exactly what I suffer from. I have an idea that I have a problem with this stuff that I'm drinking. But I don't know that I have a problem. I don't fully comprehend that I have a big problem when I'm sober. I have a big behavioral problem when I'm sober. And I don't really want to necessarily go to Thanksgiving. And you hear people in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous talking about avoiding family functions. And my belief is especially if we're talking about step 12, practice these principles in all our affairs. I need to have some affairs to practice these principles in. I'm not just getting sober to go and help like 20 people in a recovery house, although very important and vital. If I'm not helping other people, the other 10 and 11 don't work. But I also need to be making amends and then repairing relationships long term with my family and my friends that I've wronged. And in order to be able to be around that, if you're like me, I did a lot of stuff to my mom that was grimy, and to this day, even though there's been some cool things that have happened along the way, like when I made amends to her, she had told me that she could never rest. And that was like a gut punch for me. And then at 5 years sober, she gave me a card that says I can finally sleep again. That was tangible evidence in Alcoholics Anonymous that this program is working. But she still, every now and again, will pull out something like, I remember when that was like when you were drinking. And it's like, wow, I'm almost 6 years sober. Are we still doing this? Like that's my immediate reaction. I can't snap or I would snap. And because I have this toolkit, I'm able to take a breath, maybe say a resentment prayer unconsciously or consciously, not react, and let it slide. I didn't have that capability before I came in. I would sit there and walk out a job sober. The last job I was at, I was not fully happy with at the end, and I took action to get another job, and I was there for 5 years, and I didn't walk out. I gave them 3 weeks' notice before I left. Even though I wasn't fully, I didn't love where everything was going, I was able, with the tools of this program, to do that. The other thing I'll hit on, too, we're talking about cropped up. I really love, my sponsor kind of taught me this. If you think of a field of corn, and the corn gets harvested, what, August, September, probably the latest. You go out to that field in November, what are you going to find? You're going to find some corn has cropped up. That's what we're talking about with resentment and fears and selfishness. Even though I've done this big fourth and fifth step and gotten rid of a lot of this stuff, and I'm really willing to let God take me to better things, some things are going to come back. I may have the same resentment crop back up, even though I got rid of it. It may be not as big, but it's back. So it really resonated with me when I was taught that. Continue to watch. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately, make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. Now, I love the promises. You know what? I'm going to hold off on the promises for a second. So, what step 10 looks like for me now, and what I've learned over the past, so God willing, on Wednesday I'll have 6 years. I'll throw that out there. I'm 2 days away, and I don't have it. I'm really superstitious, as we should be in AA, because I still have 2 more days to get through. And I've gone through quite a bit of evolution with this. So this first started out with, if I got upset, I might go to the bathroom and pray. I would call someone. Most of the time it would be me stuffing it down until the end of the day, and I would catch it on 86. And now I would say now it's a lot of prayer throughout the day. Sometimes I'll text someone and throw something at them, but the thing that really has worked when I get really stuck throughout the day, that I've learned in the last year, is doing a written 10-step. And that's why I asked you about Katie. So KDP out of Texas actually came up with some of these worksheets and you take some of the stuff that we're doing on the 4-step and move it over to the 10-step. So instead of doing a whole 4-step, we're just doing one. And it's really effective when you sit there and do a 3 or 4 column inventory on one person or a fear, whatever's cropped up, and then you text it to the person that you're about to talk to. You can't really be like, well, she did da 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 da, and then it becomes a character assassination session, right? That's I'll call that a 10-step. I'll call someone up and I'll want to pull someone apart, and I'm really resentful of that person. Then the two of us start talking. It's very, very easy for that to happen with 2 members of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a lot harder for that to happen when I've sent someone an inventory that I've written, because we're able to get down to causes and conditions, which is the whole point of this. Causes and conditions. I'm able to see in the 4th column where my mistakes were when I'm dealing with a resentment. So that was of me. I didn't end up not being in a relationship long term. We went our separate ways, but that really was helpful for whenever I was in a romantic relationship, especially because I would get really jammed up. And she did this and she did that, and I just cannot see. I don't know if anyone else struggles with romantic relationships in a different way than other relationships, but it's very hard for me to see my part, my mistakes, because the book doesn't say my part, and that really kind of brought it home for me. So I really have a lot of love for writing that down, and if anyone's interested afterwards, we can talk about it, but it's been very helpful. So these promises are kind of why I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're a hopeless sobriety alcoholic like me, a little background, I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, the first meeting I came into was in November of 2005. And I terrorized Alcoholics Anonymous in Delaware for 10 years. And was in and out. I don't know what you guys do in Doylestown in Philadelphia, they give out the poker chips, but in Delaware, they give out these little aluminum coins for every month, up through 12, and then they added in the 18 months and all that good stuff. But when I was in 2005, you get 1 month, you get 2 months, 3 months, to the point when I came in 2015 and got sober, I had a handful of these chips I buried in my mom's backyard because I just wasn't willing to practice the principles, because my belief is I really wasn't done. I hadn't gotten to the jumping off point that our book talks about in A Vision for You, where I can't imagine life with or without alcohol. And I can read about that. I can have an intellectual understanding of I'll look at my shoes. But until I'm looking at my shoes and I can't look the person across from me in the eyes, it's not the same. And when I did reach that, and I could not imagine ever drinking again because of all the shame and the harm I did to my family, and I could not imagine repairing my life and living sober. That is a lonely place. And that is when I started to get sober and apply these principles. So when I walk in 2015, after pretty much giving up on any possibility of ever getting sober, my mom definitely gave up a long time ago. I had family members and relatives that died from this disease and were chronic, in and out, and like some really awful stories. And I really was resigned that was what was going to happen. I was going to end up in Delaware Psychiatric Center. Something was like, it wasn't good. My prognosis wasn't good. And with that hopelessness, all I really wanted to do was to not think about drinking when I was sober and not have that obsession. And that's what we're about to talk about with the 10-step promises. And I can tell you that on Saturday night, I was at Hibachi, and the guy came around with the little squirter thing. I don't know if it was water, if it was sake, but I was with a group of 12 to 14 alcoholics, and at least on our side, he came around, and every one of those people ducked it. Every one, instinctively. That's the promises that I'm about to read about. Recoiling from it as if from a hot flame. There is liquor and beer in my refrigerator because I live with 3 other people. One's an alcoholic and AA, and the other 2 are normal people. And one smokes whatever, and the other one drinks. And the alcohol is in the fridge, and I see it on a regular basis. And most of the time, I don't even think about it. I know it's in that drawer. I don't even see it. I don't open the drawer because there's no need for me to open the drawer. Now, if you had told me that in 2006, when I'm sitting in my house and every cell of my body is screaming to go get in the car and go get vodka, I wouldn't believe you. Screaming. If that stuff was in front of me, I would have had to have taken it, because that's the obsession that we're dealing with. I have no power over it, and it's sober. I am fully physically removed from everything. And that's, so I mean, for me, like when I come in, the 10-step promises are really powerful. I can't really grasp the 9-step promises when I'm new, because my life is so abnormal. It's like, okay, I won't be a prey of misery and depression anymore, maybe, but just not wanting to drink anymore and being able to be around alcohol and be sane, that was pretty good. So let's read them. And we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. Very important. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long, there's a rider, as we keep in fit spiritual condition. A lot of our promises in this book have riders. I was thinking about one on the way over, because my plan was to leave at 5 o'clock, go to Wawa, or go somewhere and get a little bite to eat. And I was like, you know what, I really, really need to stay here and do a little bit for this employer. And I was working, and HR, my friend in HR comes around and is like, hey, we had a couple leftover donuts. So I had a donut to hold me over. God provided what I needed. I mean, it's a silly example, but God provided what I needed if I stuck close to him and performed his work well. It's not what I wanted, but it was enough for me to come here, be comfortable while I share, and not have my stomach gnawing at me. So the writer hears, that is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. And fit spiritual condition involves step 10, step 11, and step 12. And again, like I said, step 12 is a little bit outside my purview, but I would say that the only way I really am growing spiritually, that's the only thing I'm going to touch on with 12, like fully tonight, is by helping other people. Because our book talks about in 14 and 15, if the alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others. It doesn't say through prayer and meditation. It doesn't say through inventory. It doesn't say through going to retreats. I have a sponsee that was 10 months sober, was doing great, was on step 12, and failed to launch, and within a week. And now he's struggling again. It's that quick. Like this process needs that final piece to be consummated. We have to be working with other people. It's very important. And I missed that for a lot of years too. Again, I trace that back to not having had that jumping off point, that experience where I admitted to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic through all the pain that I went through. And I'm going to backtrack a little bit before we get into the last paragraph. So we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. So that means it's a good gauge. I remember the first time I got in a little argument on Facebook and someone was like, let me know when the 10-step promises come true again in your life. And I was like, not happy. And, but that's, again, I like silly examples, but like if I'm arguing with someone, Facebook or in real life, it's quite a possibility that there's a problem with my spiritual status. Especially if and I know I was a prey. I don't want to sit up here and act like I'm any paragon of virtue. I was a nightmare last March on Facebook. So all is well. I was very opinionated when everything went down with the pandemic. It's all good. I learned a lesson again that my opinions don't do anything but annoy people. So we all have them. But that's a good gauge. If I'm fighting with someone, I know that my spirituality is off. So it says anything or anyone, even alcohol. It's not just talking about alcohol. By this time, sanity will have returned. I'm going to hit that too. What's the sanity they're talking about? Because I come in and I see a lot of people who aren't mentally well in Alcoholics Anonymous because we have a lot of co-occurring stuff and a lot of people have a lot of different things going on. I see this, and when I walk in, and I think I'm insane. I had tried different psych meds. I'd done this. I didn't realize it was really just about getting down to the causes and conditions and having a prayer life and trying to help other people that would take care of my alcoholism. I couldn't buy it. People were telling me it, but I just couldn't buy it. So when I hear sanity, I think I'm going to be sane again. All they're talking about right here is going back to step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Sanity towards alcohol. That's the sanity we're talking about. I get restored in a lot of other ways as well, but that's the specific kind of sanity that the book's talking about, is sanity towards alcohol. That means that I'm going to recoil as if from a hot flame. The other stuff's hopefully going to come. I may need to go see someone else. I may not. I personally haven't found it necessary to see anyone medically anyway. I talk with folks. That's the longest I'll do on that. And I'm not here to give opinions on that either. But that's the sanity we're talking about, because people who are new will get really confused by that. And I think it's really important. I point that out when I'm working with someone all the time. That's the sanity we're talking about. Yes, the other stuff's probably going to come too, but that's where the book's going with it. So going into the last paragraph, it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. I'll get a little interactive for a second. Does anyone not know what a laurel is? And it's okay. There's no shame in not knowing something. Or does anyone want a little clarity on what it is? Okay. Well, thanks, Ron. So, I mean, it's the wreath that they would wear on their head. I don't know if it was Roman or Greek, but when they won a sporting event, that was their laurel. And when we're talking about resting on our laurels, it's our past achievements. I can't take what I did yesterday and say that's good enough for my sobriety. I can't take yesterday's prayer and meditation and stay sober today. It's actually really, if you think about it in simple terms, which I missed for such a long time because I think I'm so smart that I can't finish a college degree for 10 years. But I think I'm really smart. It's just like drinking. It takes more than one whatever to get me going. It's probably going to take more than one of spirituality, and the next day, what I did today ain't going to cut it. I've got to start over again. It's the same thing with spirituality. So that's what they're talking about with Rest on Our Laurels. We are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. My friend Eric G. says an elusive enemy. That's another way of calling it in modern terms. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. Here's the 10-step prayer. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. Got to be real careful with the intellects on this one. In AA. because then willpower, I can do. Like, it's just saying pray that and try to do. Like, this is what they're talking about with you hear the next right thing sometimes in meetings. I think this is kind of what they're getting at. And for a while there, I'm not as good at it as I was, but I would pray that prayer before I walked into any situation. I go to work, how can I best serve thee? Thy will not mine be done. I walk into a meeting, how can I best serve thee? Thy will not mine be done. I walk into meeting up with friends, how can I best serve thee? Thy will not mine be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. And it becomes the second nature. There's probably some part of me that still does it subconsciously, and I don't realize it because it's become so ingrained. I'm not going to read the next paragraph, but it basically says, like, it's great that we're doing this, but we need more action. And that's the whole theme of the book. You hear people talk about, I've done all 12 steps. Okay, I haven't. I've gone through a process, but I'm never done with it. And yeah, I'm running out of juice, so I think that this is a good place to stop. Thank you all so much for having me out tonight. I love God and I love AI.
Thank you, George. Great message. Please limit your sharing to 3 minutes, and don't forget to remove your mask. Please keep your shares related to the step. If you feel like drinking, or if you've had a drink today, please see me or speak to someone after the meeting. We ask that you please refrain from the use of profanity. We're in a church and on a spiritual journey. With that, I will turn the meeting back over to George and open up.
So I just